1, 2, 3. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Listen. Okay, so I went and got my hair done last week, Wednesday. Had to get the color to get the grays out. And I'm trying to go back to my brownish, my natural color, which is brown. But I think he put too much brown in my on my roots. I don't know. Okay. I got distracted a little bit. Hi, everybody. Child, because you can see like the brown sticking out. I don't, maybe it's the color. Maybe sometimes if you mix brown, dark brown with gray, it gives this. I don't know. I'm gonna have to talk to him about that. But I'm trying to grow out the black. Anyway, how everybody doing? It's Monday. Oh, guys. So I just texted the judge. He said he's logging on now. So he should be up shortly. And today, I hate saying a lot. We got to talk about Supreme Courts. The Supreme Court of the United States have been very busy. SCOTUS has been busy. The Trump administration is keeping SCOTUS busy. And it hasn't been a full year yet. And so we have to talk about that. We have to talk about the rulings on Trump federal powers, SCOTUS ruling on Texas redistricting, Miss Thing, Jasmine Crockett, Jasmine Crockett announced she is running for senator out of Texas. Yeah. She had no choice because they was going to squeeze her out because of the redistricting ruling. We have to talk about the Cinnabon employee racist rant. And all you racist people out there giving this woman $100,000 because y'all don't like the Somalians. And then also we have to talk about, it's an update for SCOTUS Birthright. Yes. And of course we're going to start off with the Somali fraud. Oh, and the Golden Globes nominations came out. As you can see, Sinners, they were nominated like 7 times, honey. That's right, Ryan. Anyway, I see the judge. Guys, please like the video, share the video on your social media outlets, and get into the comment section and comment. And if you would like to contribute to the goal, I do have a goal. Please send in a super chat with your comments or questions. I don't see the judge. Well, he's backstage, but he's not situated just yet. I'm waiting for him to sit down and get situated, because y'all don't need to be seeing everything that's going on in his house. This color right here is really getting on my nerves. See, that this is my monologue. I'll wait till he gets settled. So my monologue is the hair color. I like my hairstylist. He's very good, but I need someone who is superb in coloring. I need a colorist. So not only I need to cover up the grays, because I don't like the way my grays grow in. I love highlights. I like different colors, and I just need a really good colorist. He does enough to cover up the grays, but this is annoying me right here. This is off. Honey, I got to get my manicure this week. I don't know, just the coloring just look off right here, but I don't know. It's driving me crazy. Judge, honey, get your camera together, honey. You can't tell him nothing. He got an Apple Watch, Apple desktop, and an Apple iPad. Balling. Yes, the judge is balling. Thank you, Angie. She says, love your hair. Very nice. Thank you. I think I'm gonna do it like this. Or then should I do it like this? Yeah, do it like that. All right, there you go. Hi.
Okay, hi there.
It takes you forever to get situated.
I know I decided to get a signal and come back in the house. You've been over here, the
honey, but you got and your camera went blank. I'm talking about how you keep fiddling with the setup. I can't hear you. I can't see you. Most likely you don't have to go out and come back in. Hi, Kataya. How are you? Yes, honey. Jesus first. How you doing? Judge, I don't know what's going on, honey. I have a 5-minute countdown so that he could get this situated.
Okay.
I can't
What?
see you. Now we can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, let me see what's going wrong here. Wait a
Now I
minute.
can see you.
What
I
the
can see you.
devil is this?
What?
Okay, now, can you see me now?
Yeah, I can see you. You just need to
Okay.
straighten the
All
well,
right.
that's fine.
What say?
You must oh no, you didn't move it. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Just leave it there. Oh, I like the hat.
Oh, Stetson.
I know that's right, honey. That's all I love. Stetson. I like Bailey's, but Stetson are my favorite.
Baileys are okay for city hats. Stetson and uh, Stetson's good. Also, if you get a Cobra or you get there's one other one. I have a bunch of them too. Stetson makes them. They collaborated. They joined forces.
Oh. Well, straighten it a little bit. It's kind of tilted unless that was
I don't
intentional.
know. It's supposed to. That
Oh,
shows character.
oh
It
my
ain't
God.
supposed to be looking.
No, but you could have it straightened up a little.
No, you can. You're supposed to wear it with the slant on it. That's the way to do
No,
it. You know that shows you don't tilt it
that's
so
like
the sun's
that's
over that
some
way coming
black
down.
some black pimp hood stuff.
No, that's how the cowboys wore it. That's how the army used to wear stuff.
They ain't wear like that in Yellowstone, honey.
Well, Yellowstone is what it is, and it's Hollywood, and most of the Hollywood sissies ain't got no knowledge about what they's doing. No way. Hmm. Half of them can't even ride on no horse. And that rival they came up with to Bass Reeves that Isaiah Washington was doing, that guy had never been on a horse before. And when the first day he fell off 6 or 7 times, so they had to have somebody stand in as a stunt double in order to ride the horse.
Well,
That's how bad it gets.
he is from England. He's British.
Well, wait a minute. English riding style. Hunting to the hounds, where you jump over fences, hedges, and across streams. They know how to ride. This dude
Yeah, but
couldn't even
not
do
they
what the
don't
English is famous for.
yeah, but
English riding boots, English
I
saddle.
know that, but see the English riding is not cowboy western riding.
It's rougher.
I don't think so because I've seen
I've
movies
done it.
where the aristocrats when they go riding, they're bougie with it.
Yeah, they are. But I mean, in the Western thing is, see, on an English ride, you get typically you got a whole lot of jumps where you jumping over stuff on the horse and you're going, oh wow, this is really wild. Horses, most of the time what the cowboys were doing, it was interesting enough. I had a good roper. His name was Woody, little small eared thing, but he had power steering, power brakes, and he could read your mind and do what you wanted him to do. And even when he got old, like he was so good, I let him die of old age. He was 27 years old. And we buried him instead of sending him to the glue factory or off to become horsehide. So he was a real good horse. You could get the biggest amateur on him and he would not scare the rookie. Or if somebody, heck, a hell of a lot better than me could get on him and really cut up, but he started getting old, so we had to calm him down. He even liked to jump. You have to watch jumps because here he is too old to do it, and he'd go charging off to go do a jump because he liked it, but he wasn't English. But
Okay. Can we
yeah,
just move on? That's cute.
yeah,
That's nice. Okay. All right. So
you
let's get
asked.
into it. I just said the hat. I like the hat. Keep the hat. Just keep the hat on. And then you want to take it. You took it off because I said keep
Yul
the hat on.
Brenner. You know who Yul Brenner was, don't you?
Not really.
You
But
don't
we
know
have
who Yul Brenner is?
no. I'm not
One
into
of the best
cowboy.
cowboy movies ever, The
Oh,
Magnificent
I don't do
Seven.
cowboy movies like that. I don't watch westerns.
Oh, that
Now,
was
I like
it.
fashion, but I don't do the shows or the western shows. Can we just get into the show? Because
You
westerns
didn't
bore
do
me.
Clint Eastwood?
Well, Clint Eastwood is sexy, and I only did maybe one of his westerns, but he's sexy.
Yeah, which one? Unforgiven?
No,
With Morgan Freeman?
no, the famous one.
You mean the
High,
spaghetti western
high.
thing?
Is it high something? High noon or something?
No, that wasn't Clint Eastwood.
Oh, well, it was one of his famous cowboys. But anyway,
He has a whole,
I
in
want to
fact,
talk
one of
about
the
it.
problems with the Western, he did one that was so awesome that nobody tried to even match it for a long time. And then there's The Wild Bunch. That's a classic.
Didn't I just say I'm getting it bores me. We need to get into the show.
Like your current pop stuff. But anyway, let's go on into it.
Oh, you don't want to talk about pop culture, but you want to talk about
No, I
western.
don't want to talk about pop culture. It's too punked out.
But a western is fine.
Yeah, they talking about men.
Okay, but all right. So what I'm gonna do is next week I'm gonna bring some tea of the western stories into
That's
the
fine.
equation. All right. Let's go to Minnesota. Was there cowboys in Minnesota? But we gotta talk about the Somalians, honey. We got an update.
Jesus Christ, Margot, we's gonna talk about some foreigners.
We got an update with Ilhan Omar.
So 20 past the hour now on a Monday morning, the glare of the spotlight now falling on Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Questions popping up about what she knew and when about a massive COVID fraud scheme in her district. Talking billions, could be billions, at least 1 billion, could go higher. Mike Tobin's got more on that now. Mike, good morning to you. What do you have?
Well, good morning, Bill. And as you mentioned, Minnesota Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has been in the crosshairs. She made the statement that there were insufficient guardrails to defrauded programs like Feed the Future. Speaking on Face the Nation, she defended against the fact that all but a handful of the suspects and convicts in this case are from Minnesota's Somali community.
This also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Analysts with whom we have been speaking say it's unlikely Omar would not have some exposure to the corruption. She introduced a legislation that created the program that was defrauded to the tune of $250 million. She also held a victory party in 2018 at a restaurant called Safari, owned by Salim Ahmed Saeed, a major player convicted in the scheme.
I think all this will be investigated very thoroughly because there's really a national spotlight on Minnesota and all its problems. I mean, this is a scandal that is by far the biggest in state history.
White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller said on Friday the Somali fraud will prove to be the greatest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare in U.S. history. And he says we have only begun to scratch the surface of how bad it is.
Okay.
Bill?
All right, Mike. Fox weather tells me it's 10 degrees in Minneapolis where you are. Wind chill -2. But Tobin is tough because he has summited Mount Everest. Thank you, Mike. Talk soon. Thank you.
Got it, pal.
Dana.
Let's bring in Kaylee McEnany. She's host of Saturday in America.
So I don't know.
Well, in this country, the first impression an ethnic group or its representative makes stays a long time. Look at Jackie Robinson playing baseball. That was a heck of a thing. Look at Jack Johnson and Joe Louis, and then Muhammad Ali as prize fighters. You see, they did well. Look at Hank Aaron playing baseball and such like. To top that all, and don't forget,
What are you talking
Kareem
about?
Abdul-Jabbar. In other words, I said, in this country, the first impression made by an ethnic group or its representative stays for a very long time. I'm just taking sports and running down the mantra of those who were first for, say, Black Americans or Afro Americans, African Americans. They did real well. Uh,
What's
you
that got to
got
do with Ilion and her corruption?
Ilion is one of the first elected folk from that country, and she's not doing too well, nor are the first mass wave of immigrants from that country, and it sticks. Black folks still suffer the onus of having been slaves, which we haven't gotten away from in this country. So the Somalis have now displaced the Nigerians for being presumed to be, whether it's true or not, whether it's statistically more likely or not, as the face of imported African criminality. Remember, everybody that was trying to run the con game used to be somewhere from Nigeria or from somewhere in Nigeria. And I can say, with my own Nigerian ancestry, according to family tradition and DNA, I get some of the onus too, but it is what it is. So you get Irish, they're the Fighting Irish. Notre Dame names its mascot after that, and you get other things too. So it
So,
is what it is.
last week when we was talking about Ilion, you said that it is highly unlikely that she would be voted out of her position as a congresswoman in the House because they want
Yeah.
to vote
Well,
her out.
see, here's the thing. We as a people tend to look at congressmen in terms of their utility or their harm to the whole country. Sometimes we forget that those congressmen that we are talking about represent districts. And they've got a saying in American politics: a people gets the representation it deserves. And if the representation ain't shit, what that's saying is the district ain't shit. And you get some shit ass districts who elect shit ass congressmen.
Mhm.
And that's just the way it
Well, I
goes.
don't think
Whether you're talking about old time Southern Dixiecrats, or you're talking about AOC, or you're talking about Coonhead Crockett,
we not
or you're
can't
talking about
say that word anymore.
this one. What
So
say?
we don't say that word. So
What word?
coon.
Davy Crockett?
Coon.
I had a coonskin cap when I was
Okay,
in
that's cool.
the third grade.
Well,
I can't talk about that.
I don't know. I'll tell you off camera the reasons why. But anyway, okay. But the people who voted for her in her district, she's treating them well. That's like she every time she go to Congress, she makes sure that she is fighting for tangibles for her district, for her Somalians, refugees. So
Well, that's nice. But maybe she needs to do like so many Democrats need to do. They need to start talking to their constituents about character development. That's
well, we
like
can't-
right here,
how they can't take
around the country.
hold on. How they gonna talk about character when they don't have any? So
That's what I'm saying. The Congress, yeah, that's the point.
maybe the people need
Who are we
to
electing that are so lacking in character? That was what I was getting to. It's like you've got crime rampant in the streets of America, and you've got a mechanism sending the National Guard, the National Guard being a state agency, not even federal,
Mhm.
and it works. And yet you have the Democrats saying we'd rather have theft and death in our city streets
Yeah.
than to lose the opportunity to attack President Trump. And it's like, What's going on here? We're supposed to die and get held up so you can have a talking point because you're calling the president, who is basically saying we play the money to equip these people who are actually state agents and officers of a state militia, ramped up to being state National Guard under the governor of a given state, but with the understanding that when there's a national emergency or something close to it, the president can take command as commander in chief of the armed forces of the United States of America. And the last I checked, these individual states are still part of the United States of America. And the last time some of them left, they got their ass kicked in the Civil War, 1861 to 1865. So since we've resolved that, you know, what is this?
Well, I want to play a little bit more of this clip.
For taxpayer dollars, an appreciation for the values that bind us together despite our different cultures, backgrounds, languages, etc. I think that's an important point you've heard Besant make. Stephen Miller as well.
Speaking of Stephen Miller, so he has commented on this. We showed the clip at the beginning in the Hannity show. She responded yesterday saying that it's like talking to a Nazi.
When I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me, yes, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. There have been many immigrants who have tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens. We are productive. Part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
I think you know Stephen Miller well.
Yeah, I mean, she accuses Stephen of being a Nazi. Stephen's Jewish, first of all. Stephen's a great person. Stephen's someone who loves this country and is working hard for it. And Stephen and his family have been totally and completely under fire and accosted with all kinds of threats for doing what they're doing. It was the day after Charlie Kirk's assassination that Katie Miller was stormed by someone outside of her home who said, "I'm watching you." There were wanted signs up by their home in Virginia accusing him of crimes against humanity. They have been under threat. And as Stephen Miller said, it's an organized campaign of dehumanization, vilification. And that's what this is. It's organized. They're being called Nazis. It's just not Ilhan Omar. It is others too. And it is shameful rhetoric that should be toned down.
Thank you, Kaylee.
I'd say this, my major at UCLA, well, I didn't do badly at UCLA and got recruited by a number of law schools, including the major ones in the United States. I picked UCLA again. That major and my study of it over the last half century would suggest that the real Nazis in this case, by method, aim, tactics, strategy, would be the Democratic Party. And they illustrate that by frequently trying to flip the script, which is a propaganda tactic, and call their opposition or opponents fascist, which is not the case, to restrict speech. And you just came up with it. We can't talk about Davy Crockett's classic head attire. That's an example of fascism and Nazism. And who do you think is responsible for that? The people who are saying Omar here is way wrong with what she's been advocating, what she's been propagandizing, what she's trying to get those that seem to have sympathy for her to do, to deal with lawlessness in the streets, disorder, disrespect for the country, disrespect for masculinity, disrespect for law and order in general. And we are supposed to be silent, and we can't make an expression of anything outside. Well, if we look at this, the dichotomies of the situation indicate that someone like AOC and this young lady that we're talking about here have a classic illustration of what the great Malcolm X said at one time: a processed head equals a processed mind. And we must look at what they're doing. Look at this lady here and look at the one down in Texas and all of the elaborate head manipulations that we have. Yeah, okay,
And
fine.
so and you could hear in her when she was on Face the Nation yesterday and actually talked about this yesterday, but you can hear the talking points of the Democrats saying Stephen Miller is Nazi. And why would someone who is Jewish, right? And I don't Zionist or not, why would somebody I don't he's Jewish.
I don't agree with his assessment as
Yeah,
being fascist or Nazi, but I can see how there were traitors to the Jewish race during World War II, a lot of collaborators.
true.
There are traitors to the black ethnic group in the United States of America, and I can name a whole lot of them who have a certain degree of prominence. They're sellouts, they get an advantage, they've been mind whipped, and they're still behind the figurative bars of a plantation fence.
Mhm.
Now, with barbed wire at the top, concertina wire at the top, and they think like slaves, act like slaves, they exploit like the slave masters did, and they are staunch followers, whatever the policies happen to be, of the old slave party that was chartered way back in the second decade of the 19th century for the specific purpose of protecting and expanding slavery, that fought the Civil War to retain slavery, that fought the after effects of slavery in terms of the country trying to rehabilitate itself with Jim Crow, the Klan,
Mhm.
White Citizens Council, Plessy versus Ferguson, segregation,
Dress
and then fought it all through this country's history. This same party is the same one that is pushing socialism. And let us look at socialism, the National Socialist Party.
mm,
What else do we know as the National Socialist Party? National Socialist Workers' Party. We know one whose German acronym is represented by the letters NAZI, National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany. That's Nazi.
mm,
So who do we have most closely proximate to that these days?
right.
This one pressing this Nazi-like propaganda, this anti-Semitism. She knows who this man is, or else she just one of these reckless ignoramuses like so many are, like we've been seeing
Mhm.
Davy Crockett head woman over there with her barn size eyelashes fake, all of that fake. And who is acting like a Nazi? Who's trying to flip the script?
Right.
And I can say, well, without even trying to be braggadocious, I've been more black, acted more black, been black longer than any of them, both of them put together. And when you deal with that, I got license to talk about who is part of my team. And they are not. They are part of the enemy that want to keep you oppressed, victimized by their own stupid programs that they claim are trying to be put on your shoulders because you are a perpetual victim and you can't grow up enough, become man enough, woman enough to escape this or even fight it. You're supposed to be a criminal and somehow talking about crime as being anti-black because that's supposed to match what the Hollywood mythology has been about, which is this myth that blacks are criminals.
Mhm.
Well, let's let it go back around. This woman's been pushing that agenda. So if it's applying to her people, she brought it on because she's been advocating it.
Mhm.
Now, let's be real. It's a bad thing. I don't approve of it, but it is what it is. And we have free speech, and getting your feelings hurt is part of the collateral damage that goes along with the benefits associated with free speech. That's like the punks that couldn't stand anybody talking about them. Oh, you talk about Obama. Well, man, everybody out here running dozens, man. That's what we do for recreation during recess and lunch. We talk about mamas, man. Like, can you hang? Man, we talk about somebody go take him somewhere. See, and they talk a lot,
Mm.
but they can't hang. And it is bad for them. And by hanging, I don't mean some form of execution. I mean being part of the flow, to be able to handle
Right.
the hurt feelings or even the good natured comedic insults. Watching people run to dozens when they're good is like being in a good comedy club with good stand up
So
comedians,
I want
but they all in their
to
feelings.
swing it back to Ileana because I'm gonna wrap it up with that so we could go into SCOTUS.
And by the way, this has nothing to do with our religion. Islam is an ancient and honorable religion. Okay. This just happens to be like Christianity is an ancient and honorable religion, but you had some Nazis who were good Christians. You had Torquemada running the Inquisition, and you had a whole lot of black folk and alleged witches got burned at the stake behind that too. So I mean,
Well,
it's everything's got its
now that you
downside.
brought up religion real quick, I'm starting to hear people talk about religion a lot now on social media, and they're doing a lot of negative stereotype and sentiments towards Muslim. And I have a problem with that because I have family who my grandkids, they're Muslim. And so when you have, the Somalians who are majority Muslim, with the fraud, but we didn't get this, but you don't have the same type of energy where Jewish people in New Jersey, it was multi-millions of welfare fraud. Brett Farr, he was caught up recently stealing and taking advantage of SNAP and social service money scandal and corruption. I think was in Mississippi. I didn't hear the uproar with that, but because I believe there are immigrants, refugees, and some of them are probably illegal and they're Muslim, you know, is it and then Trump is leading the charge of saying, hey, these people are no good. I get it, but I'm starting to hear a lot of rhetoric against Islam, against Muslims. And so when Democrats throw up, oh, he's a Nazi, they're like Hitler, they're playing into that same type of narrative, trying to throw it at them. And then other people who are not pro Democrat, they're attacking Muslim as well. So it seemed like it's a game.
Yeah, it's a game.
Yeah.
And look at this way. Mecca is the holiest place for Islam that can be found. Where is it located? Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
Who just got feted as the king that he is when he visited President Trump in the White House? The Kai King of the House of Saudi.
Mhm.
So he's Muslim. Did he get treated badly? No.
Well,
He got treated and got the literal red carpet spread out for him. So is that because they're Islamic or, like
Right.
if you want to talk about
right.
Christians, I can think of white robes and white pointed hoods and crosses burnt in people's yards. Been there, seen that, done that for real
Right. Well, no,
back in the day.
I'm not talking about like Trump or the Trump administration. I'm just talking about the general public.
Yeah, I know, but it's like I said, it's people have there's a thing called xenophobia. That's the natural human tendency to not be very friendly to something that's strange and different to you.
Right. Well,
So racism and all of the rest of this, the ethnic persecutions that have occurred are a reflection of the human characteristic of xenophobia. And you even have this, it's the weirdest thing with animals. I've been out and watched wild wolves run in packs, and they have problems where certain packs don't like all black wolves, and certain packs don't like mostly white wolves either, and they tend to hang out with what they're doing. So you go, wow, the canines are out there doing what the humans are doing. So, you know, it is what it is. It's an animal thing. There's no getting around it. But if you get somebody properly socialized and acculturated, you start getting them to understand that their ethnic group is part of something else, which in the way the world is set up now is a country. And the people on their team have the same flag. So when somebody has the same flag and you're on the same team with the same goal in mind, or should have it in mind, then you have to act with a certain type of uh,
Mhm.
equanimity toward each other. I played
Wait,
football,
hold on.
and I
Hold
know
on.
I've
Wait.
hated
Well,
quarterbacks I had to play under, but I still blocked for
right.
them.
Well, here's the
So
thing.
it is what it
Here's the
is.
thing. This is the last question or comment I'm gonna make on this because we really have to go on to the next topic. Um, do you think that Ilhan Omar and her constituents in Minnesota are anti-American and they're just majority pro Somalia?
I think they are running with what they have gotten with their elected officials, which is lawlessness is okay. Lawlessness is good if it's done on our side. Lawlessness is a characteristic of you, so you might as well act like it. There should be no consequences for whatever you do, so whatever you can get away with, get away with. Now, you bring people in from a culture where Daesh is ordinary and accepted in business and politics and government. You know what Dash is? To bribe, the money under the table. That's assumed to be part of any kind of deal. What is the deal makers and the friends thereof going to get under the table? It's Dash, DASH. So when you bring people in and you have a culture that does that, you better do something to try and acculturate them so they go the quote American way. We aren't supposed to do that, although we do have a history of our robbers, be they Jesse James or Machine Gun Kelly or, you know, Frank Nitti and
I would
Al
definitely say
Capone.
this, you know, if they keep uncovering more and more fraud and Ilion name is anywhere in the mix and this investigation continues to go on, she may end up unemployed and possibly behind bars. And
Oh, yeah.
so,
And what are they pushing? Who are they trying to say because this person was in a picture with a certain somebody, that somebody needs to be evil? Epstein. Remember, the Democrats are trying to say anybody that ever looked at Epstein, shook his hand, or was in the same room somehow or another is evil. The same group that has been pushing that rhetoric, that narrative for a long while, is now getting upset when it gets pushed back the other way against them. You know,
mhm.
what is the old saying? You live in glass houses, you don't throw stones.
All right, so let's go to the Supreme Court. Let me share this. I'm a raise up your blood pressure in a minute. Uh, okay, so the Supreme Court on Monday morning, this morning, signaled that it was likely to strike down a federal law that restricts the president's ability to fire members of the Federal Trade Commission. During 2.5 hours of arguments in the case of Trump versus Slaughter, a solid majority of the justices appeared to agree with Trump administration that a law prohibiting the president from firing FTC commissioners, except in cases of insufficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance,
Malfeasance.
malfeasance in office, violate
That means you did wrong.
okay, violates the constitutional separation of powers between the three branches of government. And although several justices expressed skepticism about a 90-year-old case, Humphrey's Executor versus United States, upholding that law, it was less clear that there was a majority ready to overrule it. Go ahead.
Well, I don't have any problems with this. See, part of what the law is about is things happen. There's human progress or regress. Uh, and sometimes what goes on is circumstances develop that were not anticipated by the people that wrote the Constitution. Couldn't have. Like, for example, there is a whole large body of law that impugns on the concept of piracy, and it involves airplanes. In 1789, when the Constitution was adopted, who had ever fantasized about an airplane? You know, and people commonly traveling in airplanes rather than ships. So, you know, these things change and the law must change. And by the way, the very first case said the common law of the United States, which is the fundamental law until it is overturned or modified by statutory law, is, quote, this is a quote, that body of judge-made law based on tradition, precedent, and the evolving conditions of society, unquote. That is a case all the way back from 1792. So that's about as old as it gets. And it is case number 1, volume 1, page 1 of the reporters or the volumes of law reports that
Right.
recite what the Supreme Court has done. So, yeah, it changes.
Well, I want to play a couple of snippets from the justice's remarks of today's hearing.
Some issues, some matters, some areas should be handled in this way by nonpartisan experts. That Congress is saying that expertise matters with respect to aspects of the economy and transportation and the various independent agencies that we have. So having a president come in and fire all the scientists and the doctors and the economists and the PhDs and replacing them with loyalists and people who don't know anything is actually not in the best interest of the citizens of the United States. These issues should not be in presidential control. So can you speak to me about the danger of allowing in these various areas the president to actually control the Transportation Board and potentially the Federal Reserve and all these other independent agencies? In these particular areas, we would like to have independence. We don't want the president controlling. I guess what I don't understand from your overarching argument is why that determination of Congress, which makes perfect sense given its duty to protect the people of the United States, why that is subjugated to a concern about the president not being able to control everything. I mean, I appreciate there's a conflict between the two, but one would think under our constitutional design, given the history of the monarchy and the concerns that the framers had about a president controlling everything, that in the clash between those two, Congress's view that we should be able to have independence with respect to certain issues should take precedence.
Well, first thing I'd say in response to that is I've been dealing with law longer than she has, went to a comparable law school, and my legal career was as good as hers, so I can speak. But I would also say I think she represents the concept she's speaking against. We've got an idiot, Joe Biden, who nominated her for president, and he passed on the Second Circuit Justice Roger E.
He
Clifton,
nominated her
who is a
not
fine
president.
black woman. What's
Justice,
that?
justice, not president. You said nominated her.
No, I'm saying President Biden, illustrating her point, she got nominated by an incompetent idiot. And if we took her line of argument, we would say he should not be allowed to make nominations, even though the Constitution says he can. And we would have said, why didn't we nominate Justice Roger E. Clifton from the Second Circuit or Justice Bernice Donald from the Sixth Circuit for the U.S. Supreme Court? Both fine black women that I'm personally acquainted with, know their husbands, great people, brilliant scholars, and actually have been in the trenches dealing with the hands-on face-to-face type law that deals with most humans in America. The whole thing that she's putting out there says that the Congress of the United States has set up a situation with the Fed and some other things because their ignorance and their inability to conceive of, understand, and manipulate economics requires that you get these independent experts who are put in a position not by the vote of any body of people, but by their representatives. And what happens is that they control the lives, the economics, the finances, and the well being of so many American citizens, and nobody voted on them. Now, what is going on that makes her argument absolutely crap is the fact that the president under the Constitution is responsible for all of this. These individuals are part of the executive branch of the government. He is the person responsible for them. And to tell him, we put you on a situation where we're going to hold it your fault. And as Truman famously said, the buck stops here. And he pointed at his White House desk when he was sitting behind it in the Oval Office. He said, the buck stops here. And if the buck stops here, then you have to be given a responsibility to have something to say. Well, to have something to say about who you're going to be responsible for. See, the president's not responsible for what the elected officials in Congress do.
Yeah,
He's not responsible except for those he nominates and gets confirmed who sit on the Supreme Court. So why does he have to be responsible for what somebody that he didn't put in place is going to stick him to?
well, it says here that is really about, should he have the right to fire experts that are helping to
Who says they're experts?
no, okay, so
See, that's the issue. We, the United States of America, have a chief executive. He's known as the president
let
of
me
the
read
United
this part for
States.
clarity, because it says a decision in favor of the Trump administration will signify increase the president's power over not only the FTC, but roughly 24 other multi-member agencies that Congress intended to be independent. President Donald Trump has also fired members of the National Labor Relations Board, the Merit Systems Protection Board, and the Consumer Products Safety Commission. The Supreme Court has already allowed those firings to take effect in proceedings on its interim docket. But the court's ruling in the case of FTC Commissioner Rebecca Slaughter will provide a more definitive ruling on the legality of those firings. So basically,
Experts. What gives him the authority to fire a so-called expert? Well, who said the person is an expert? Some other president, so you have no longer retained your office. That makes you a better authority on who's expert than the current occupant or her. That was my point for the original dialogue. Who says she is the expert on American law that ought to be sitting on the highest court of the land? I'd say in her own circumstances, there are at least two people I'm personally acquainted for that would be more qualified and a better expert. And I don't acknowledge her expertise. I not acknowledge and respect her
let me
office.
say this. It's not, let's move from her for a second, because it says the FTC has 5 commissioners who are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate to serve 7-year terms. Under the law governing the FTC, no more than 3 of the commissioners can come from a single political party. And as noted above, commissioners can only be removed from office for inefficiencies, neglect of duty, and malfeasance in office.
Look at our lousy economy that we inherited from the Biden administration that the first Trump administration couldn't overcome after that clown Barack Obama did what he did with his cronies and his Indonesian trust fund that profited so much from the circumstances he helped create. Look at his relationship to his cousins, George Herbert Walker Bush, George Walker Bush, Dick Cheney, Governor Palin of Alaska. Look at those people and look at Uncle Herbert Walker, and you see the cabal that was dealing with a certain economic perspective. Look at what happened with Gulf War I, where the Bush family's fortune was wiped out because Hussein nationalized, amongst other entities, Zapata Offshore Oil Inc., which was the Bush family holding company. Look at what happened when Halliburton, which is started by Uncle Herbie, the Bush Walker family business that got the huge contract without bid to exploit Iraqi oil in 2007, that as of 2008 was returning $2.4 to $2.7 million in profit every 7 hours of the day to them,
I
net.
want
Now,
to play.
these things are what we get stuck with. What my point is this: who says that these people are the best experts you can find? What about the experts who are supposed to be that, who tell you about what the Rainbow Coalition is pushing being normative? It's not.
All right,
And they are a very distinct minority, yet some people, the press and all of
let
that,
me play
want you
this
to
clip.
believe that they're
All right,
experts.
let me play this clip here.
Some issues, some matters, some areas should be handled in this way by nonpartisan experts. That Congress is saying that expertise matters with respect to aspects of the economy and transportation and the various independent agencies that we have. So having a president come in and fire all the scientists and the doctors and the...
I think I played that one.
Yeah, you did. And that point still belabors the point of who says they are the best experts in the subject, or not just somebody who happens to, irrespective of their party, display a certain ideological leaning,
Well,
whether it's
this
economic,
one.
whether
Wait,
it's medical, or whatever.
wait. I want to play this clip of Clarence Thomas.
This morning in case 25332, Trump versus Slaughter. General Sauer.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court. In SELA law, this court held that the president's power to remove and thus supervise those who wield executive power on his behalf follows from the text of Article 2, was settled by the first Congress, and has been confirmed by precedent, including at least 9 decisions of this court from Ex parte Hennon through Trump against United States. Humphrey's executor stands as an indefensible outlier from that line of authority. It's holding that federal agencies can exercise quasi-legislative and quasi-judicial powers that form no part of the executive power has not withstood the test of time. That holding was gutted and refurbished in Morrison, but this court correctly rejected the refurbished version as providing an amorphous test with no limiting principle. Respondent now proposes a third update to Humphreys, which this court has already rejected as making no logical or constitutional sense. Humphreys must be overruled. It has become a decaying husk with bold and particularly dangerous pretensions. It was grievously wrong when decided, and cases from Morrison to Trump have thoroughly eroded its foundations. The court has repudiated Humphrey's reasoning and confined it to its facts, but it continues to generate confusion in the lower courts, and it continues to tempt Congress to erect, at the heart of our government, a headless fourth branch, insulated from political accountability and democratic control. As Justice Thomas wrote in SELA law, Humphreys poses a direct threat to our constitutional structure and, as a result, the liberty of the American people. And as SELA law held, the modern expansion of the federal bureaucracy sharpens the court's duty to ensure that the executive branch is overseen by a president accountable to the people. I welcome the court's questions.
General Sauer, could you give us one example of a permissible restriction on the authority to remove a principal officer?
We don't believe there are permissible restrictions on principal officers of the United States who exercise the executive power. Now, there may be separate issues relating to
let's say
particular historical pedigrees.
In this case, in a multi-body agency such as the FTC, is there any permissible restriction?
No, this court in Trump against the United States held that the president's power to remove officers wielding the executive power is conclusive and preclusive.
How far do you go with that? Can it be arbitrary, completely arbitrary?
It is conclusive and preclusive, so any review of arguably bad reasons for the president to remove an executive officer would be subject to the political process. It would not be subject to judicial review, and certainly not subject to statutes regulating that.
What are you talking about?
Well, let me put it this way. When I had it explained to me 55 years ago in law school, what it is this. Think of a general. A general cannot be appointed to command authority without the consent of Congress, but he can be removed by the commander-in-chief immediately, since the commander-in-chief has the ultimate authority and is ultimately responsible. That is the same thing that applies to these appointed offices. He cannot appoint somebody to exercise this authority that is implicit in the position being appointed without the consent of Congress. They have to approve it. But that is not to say that he cannot remove somebody because that person is, say, totally against what the people elected him to do. Let's say we go back to the 1930s. We are in the worst depression in the country's history, the worst in world history, the Great Depression of 1929. And you want to say, well, the president who got elected on a mandate to do something about this horrible economic situation, he can't do anything about it because somebody that was in office several years before appointed somebody who's not subject to any kind of constraints or controls whatsoever. That's not going to be. And in this case, there's only one segment of government where that is allowed. It's the courts themselves on the federal level, where they maintain a lifetime appointment for life or good behavior. In other words, the good behavior is said as long as you don't commit a crime in office, you're okay. Nobody can touch you because we want independence for our judiciary. But other than that constitutional mandate and requirement, there's nothing in that Constitution that says, hey, you get stuck with something some bureaucrat did some time ago and there's no way of going behind it. You have to logically give the president the authority to remove someone who is exercising inappropriate judgment and making bad calls on what he's supposed to be directing. You have to. And that's what these decisions said. Inherent in the power that the president has as the chief executive over the executive branch is to manage and direct the executive branch, and he has the authority to remove those who are supposed to be executing his authority on his behalf if they're not doing so.
Right. Well, I want to play this clip of Justice Sotomayor.
She's going to be on the other side, I know.
Severability of the issue. Meaning, if you think they're wielding power that is inappropriate, why don't we sever that power?
I think those very arguments...
Instead of the removal power.
Well, for example, consider an agency like the FTC, which is before the court. Virtually all of its powers. I can't think of a power that exercises...
But most of those powers were part of Humphreys. This court, even in Sheila Law, and all of the cases you've mentioned since, have said that Humphreys is controlling law. You're asking us to overturn a case that has been around for nearly 100 years, correct?
90 years, I believe.
90 years. What other cases have we overturned that have had a pedigree of 100 years?
Plessy versus Ferguson
was overruled by Schaefer against Heitner on its 100th birthday.
That was an economic case. What other case?
For example, Erie overruled a 50 Tyson 96 years later. Those are
That's
two examples. There's at least 13 or
but which other case has fundamentally altered the structure of government?
Brown
For
v.
over
Board of
100 years,
Education.
actually since 1887, we've had multi-member boards, and that's the entire government structure.
the distortion of the structure of government, respectfully, that Humphrey, the philosophy of
Aren't you asking us to distort it a different way?
I think we're
Neither
asking,
the king, nor Parliament, nor prime ministers, England at the time of the founding, ever had a unqualified removal power. You're asking us to say that at a time, the founding, when the Constitution doesn't speak about this at all, where there was robust debate over this issue among legal scholars at the time, that we ourselves has said repeatedly in Humphreys and other cases, Wiener, even in Myers, that that those cases you mentioned did not establish this absolute power of the president. You're asking us to destroy the structure of government and to take away from Congress its ability to protect its idea that the government is better structured with some agencies that are independent.
I think we're asking the court to return to the dominant line of authority that started in Ex parte Henin in 1839, when this court said that it's a settled and well understood construction of the Constitution that the president alone can remove executive officials. That was reaffirmed in Parsons, for example, where it described it as settled beyond the power of alteration. Again, in Shurtleff, similar language. Myers says the same thing. Free Enterprise Fund, Collins, Seal of Law, Trump against the United States, and even Humphrey's executor itself paid lip service to this principle. Humphreys described this power as unrestricted and illimitable. And in order to get out of that rule, which the court has recognized in those 9 decisions, is going back
You
to
still haven't
1789.
answered my question.
He just answered it, lady.
Where else have we so fundamentally altered the structure of government?
I think what the fundamental alteration of the structure of the government was ushered in by Humphreys, and then the Congress kind of took Humphreys and ran with it in the building of the monstrous administrative state and the proliferation of independent agencies that are insulated from
Independent
democratic
agencies
control.
have been around since the founding, the Sinking Fund, the War Commission. We've had independent agencies throughout our history. So this is not a modern contrivance.
We disagree with that, as in our brief, we disagree with that characterization of those agencies. The Sinking Fund Commission, for example, was composed of 3 officers who were cabinet
And we have an
secretaries.
amicus that
clearly
shows
removable.
us how the president's
Well,
will
lady,
have been
could you let him
thwarted
finish
by
his
that
point?
structure.
Come on.
We have an amicus brief that shows us how that the
Can
president's
you stop
will
this for a
by that
second?
structure.
She's illustrating the point without realizing it. First off, Brown v. Board of Education upset several hundred years of American history, saying that black folk could be either enslaved or treated as second-class citizens. She also does not deal with the fact that there was a specific case called Plessy versus Ferguson that established separate but equal that Brown v. Board of Education threw out. She's not dealing with the fact that we have the Dred Scott decision that helped start the Civil War, that was a decision. And we are forgetting, she's forgetting why she has the authority to hear this case in the first place. It's called Marbury versus Madison, 1803. 222 years ago, the United States Supreme Court upheld the proposition by President Madison, that says when an act of Congress is unconstitutional, the president does not have to follow it. So what happens is Trump is saying this provision of the statutory scheme that is 90-some years old is unconstitutional. It needs to be revised, and he's acting effectively on the plaintiff's side in this case. Really, they are defending and saying, no, what going wrong is this is dead wrong. This is anti-constitutional. This is inappropriate under the scheme of the American Constitution to say that these appointed officials have more authority about managing the economy than the president's office. Or what are we going to do if some Congress makes a bad approval and ratifies another president's previous selections, and that dead hand is to reach out of the grave and control the activity of somebody who was recipient of a large mandate specifically to reverse some of the policies of the administration that appointed these people.
Right.
The case is Marbury versus Madison, 1803, United States Supreme Court, 222 years old.
Well,
So yeah, and
she's saying that she thinks that you're going to destroy the structure of government.
of course they think big government is what has to happen and the people have no choice and government's supposed to play big brother or tranny big sister and run everything for all of the people in the country. That's what Trump was elected to see to, which is to turn that around.
Right.
So that's what he's doing. And she's going to overthrow the political process by a recently selected elected official.
These kinds of historical examples, I think, have been considered in this court's cases from Free Enterprise Fund and seal law and so forth.
So what do we
There's
do
been a lively
with
debate
Morrison?
about that, and the court
What do we
has
do
come-
with Morrison and Weiner and Perkins?
Well, Morrison, for example, I think is a really critical precedent here, because what Morrison did is it repudiated the entire logic that supported the holding of Humphrey's executor. It repudiated correctly the idea that there are these quasi-judicial and quasi-legislative powers that are outside the executive power, and yet they're wandering around the executive branch.
Yet you
and not in-
answered the Chief Justice by saying that maybe we just need to look at each agency individually. So we can't leave that area. By the way, your logic, you're putting at risk. By this, you're saying there's uncertainty. I think the uncertainty in the lower courts was not over Humphrey's executor. It has been over the court's most recent decisions, not because of Humphrey's executor. But you're putting at risk the independence of the tax court, of the federal claims court, Article I courts. You're putting at risk the civil service. I don't see how your logic could be limited.
As to the non-Article III courts, we haven't challenged the removal restriction as
Not yet.
non-Article III court in this
Not
case.
yet. Not yet.
And we recognize that there are some line-drawing issues as to those that came up in cases like Freitag and Ortiz. Again, those aren't presented here. Those aren't briefed here.
Not yet.
There's a difference.
This is how.
See, look, what's going on here is she's talking over the man, and if she gave him the 2 or 3 or 4 minutes he needs to make his point, it becomes clear. What is going on is you're talking about appointments to courts, and the Constitution is clear on that. It wants to maintain the independence of the judiciary. The legislative process is not supposed to be independent, but is supposed to be responsive to the people. The House of Representatives, which is elected to 2-year terms, is supposed to be corresponding to the Roman House of Plebes, which deals with the sentiments and passions of the mob on a regular basis. The Senate, which has a 6-year term, is supposed to be reserved and laid back. And as there was this famous exchange between Jefferson and someone else while they were debating these things, why do you pour your tea into the saucer? To cool it so I can drink it. He said, well, that's why we need the Senate rather than just one unicameral or one house legislative body to cool it off. So what she's confusing is a classic situation that comes up when you're trying to teach a lot of first-year students, law students, about congressional law. They get all caught up in the wants and they can't see the forest for the trees. And that's what she's illustrating which is showing the deficiency of the appointments that the Obama administration is responsible for, that the Clinton administration is responsible for in making the judiciary what it is today. It's not what it ought to be because there are too many people involved in this process who are vested in an emotive or propagandistic or agenda-driven resolution to everything rather than dealing with there is a moderating impact when the law is consistent in its application. And when you have a constitutional scheme that says we have these three branches of government, so no one branch can become all powerful, but they can do what they're supposed to do. Well, these appointed officials who hold these 7-year terms act for the executive branch, but it is ridiculous to say you got elected as president, you got a mandate from the people of the United States of America to do what you were claiming you were going to do with your campaign plank, but once you get in, you can't touch it because you were locked into whatever these people who were selected by no democratic process and were put in place by someone who put them in just before you took office, so they're going to have 6.5 years where there's no way to touch them. It's not going to happen.
So the decision for this case is expected in late June or early July of next year.
Next year. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the way things work in America. And also, here's the other thing, too. There have been many points that are not clear with the current status of the law. So they must be brought and decided by various courts. And I know I'm not speaking with a great deal of, shall we say, endorsement with what I'm hearing from the liberal side of the court, but that's nothing new. There have been judges that I practiced in front of who might have been conservative, might have been liberal. We wound up agreeing on a point, and others where the same point comes up and we were in total disagreement. And when we went up to the Court of Appeals, sometimes I won, sometimes I didn't.
Right.
And there was an interesting thing that I show
Can
that
you just-
illustrate.
can we
I have to
say
give you this one last thing, very brief. There was a judge whose name was unforgettable, William Williams. And later, 25, 30 years after the fact, he became my suite mate when he came out of retirement to run a special court.
What?
Okay, he became my suite mate. In other words, we had the same judge's secretary, same Xerox equipment and stuff.
He became your office mate?
Well, yeah, he was on the same floor I was in, and our suite of offices took up one side of a building. So he had the south side, I had the north side. So, okay, here's what I'm saying. We had a knockdown, drag out argument in court over a point of law. All right. He told me I was crazy, and I said, with respect, I do not think I am. So I walked into court some long months later, and he said, Lloyd Brown, I need to see you in chambers. I said, oh, what have I done? He said, congratulations. I said, Your Honor. He said, did you see the decision? I said, no, sir. Yeah, Reed, you whipped my ass. You was right. He said, you drink whiskey? I said, yeah. He said, Jack Daniels? I said, I do. Have a shot on me. Poured me a general. I just want to shake your hand. You did your job as a defense lawyer. That's what you're supposed to do. And you whipped my ass because I was wrong. Now, see, that's the way the law is supposed to operate. Somebody congratulates you for dealing with the law dispassionately and prevailing. These clowns take it personally.
We have to go to the next topic.
Which is what?
You know when I you know how I move you along.
Okay, come on. I know, but these are things the American public needs to hear about their law. Go ahead.
Thursday. So
What?
I need hold this.
I'll
story.
forget by then. Go ahead. What are we doing now? Next. Come on. I yield.
So Supreme Court allows Texas to use redistricting map challenge as racial discrimination. So on Thursday of last week, the Supreme Court gave the green light to Texas efforts to be able to use the new congressional map favorable to Republicans in 2026 election, despite the lower court's ruling that the map unconstitutionally sorts voters based on race. In a brief, unsigned opinion, a majority of the court granted the state's request to pause the ruling issued earlier this month by a 3-judge district court in El Paso. That ruling had been on hold since November 21st when Justice Samuel Alito, who handles emergency appeals from Texas, temporarily stated to give the justices time to consider the state's request. Wednesday's decision extends that hold indefinitely. The court's 5-paragraph order indicated that Texas is likely to secede on the merits of its claim that the district court committed at least 2 serious errors. Moreover, it added that lower court improperly inserted itself in an active primary campaign, causing much confusion and upsetting the delicate federal-state balance in elections.
I agree with what the Supreme Court did here. That was appropriate, it was necessary, and it followed precedent. Now, this illustrates what I have been talking about. What one lower court does not mean that's going to wind up as the law for the entire country, because the U.S. Supreme Court may overturn the ruling of the lower court or of the appellate court that affirmed it. So that's what counts.
So right now, Texas currently have 38 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, 22 of which are controlled by the Republican Party. Republicans as a whole hold a much narrower majority in the House, 219 to 214, with 2 vacant seats. Now, I say all that to say, getting to her, Jasmine Crockett has officially launched her campaign for Senate out of the state of Texas today. Oh, wait.
Well, good. That's nice. She won't win as senator for the state of Texas.
Wait. Let me play the video.
How about this new one they have? Their new star, Crockett. How about her?
She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. They're in big trouble.
But you have this woman, Crockett. She's a very low IQ person.
I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person.
Crockett. Oh, man.
She's a very low IQ person.
Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
So that was her campaign.
Yes, you know what?
So
She run for Senate, but
she was trolling Trump. Since he likes to troll people.
yeah, but you know what? I'd bet on the snowball staying unmelted in hell before I'd bet on her becoming senator for the state of Texas. Ain't gonna happen. But what we are gonna see is the reapportionment situation in Texas is gonna go as per the Republican majority. And we're going to see bye-bye Jasmine, because she will have no more seats she can win, which is appropriate because she certainly doesn't represent Texas, just a small group of people in that area.
I'm going to play this clip.
Representative Jasmine Crockett launched a Senate bid after she was thrown out of her House district during the Lone Star State's redistricting push that became set in stone last week. Crockett's bid comes just hours after former Representative Colin Allred dropped out of the Democratic primary, saying that a bruising Democratic primary and runoff would hurt the party's chances to remain unified against President Donald Trump. Crockett has quickly risen to fame, serving her second term in the lower chamber, as many facets of the GOP have aimed to make her the face of the Democratic Party. The Congresswoman has had many viral moments on social media for her quick-witted comments.
Ms. Crockett.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling, if someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad-built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
As of the end of September, Crockett had $4.6 million cash on hand, according to the Federal Election Commission.
Wrap up some.
Yeah, she's got that far left that's been raising a lot of money because they're desperately trying to promote their agenda, and it doesn't work with the American people. Meanwhile, I recognize what she is. We've got a lot of them left around. She's from Memphis, Tennessee, when it comes to her alma mater, her collegiate alma mater, Rhodes College. And she acts just like the clown show around here, where they think theft and death on the streets of Memphis is acceptable if it gives them an opportunity to attack President Trump. So that's all she's done is attack Trump. She hasn't proposed anything that is helpful to much of anybody, not even to her district. And what her district is showing is a slavish loyalty to the party of their old slave masters. And that thing with Juneteenth, where they were the last group in the country to find out that the Civil War had been won by the Union forces. So, I mean, what else is new?
So the polling, so the guy who she was going to be running up against, the other Democrat, Colin Alfred or someone, he dropped out. And that's because the Democrat Party forced him to drop out, because if he would have stayed in the race, she would not win the primary. That's not good.
Well,
So
who is she running against in the primary? The other Democrat. How many were in the race?
okay, so Colin Alfred, he was running in the Senate race for
That's in the Democratic primary.
right.
So
And this is him here.
the winner would
State
be
Senate.
one up with the
Decided
Republican
instead
candidate.
to run for a newly drawn House seat, and he joins me now from Dallas. Colin, it's always good to see you. Thanks for making time for us. Why drop out? Why not carry ahead with the Senate campaign?
Yeah, well, listen, I thought about this very deeply, and I think there's a certain responsibility that comes with the trust that so many Texans have placed in me. And as I would go around the state, folks would tell me their story. They would open up to me in a way that let me know that we had established a relationship and a trust that also meant that I had to make sure that I did what I thought was best for our state and for the party heading into November. And I did not think that a brutal primary with a runoff, which, as you may know, Major, in Texas, that we don't get 50% or more in the primary, you have to have a runoff. That further extend the primary. I didn't think that would serve those folks who had placed their trust in me, but that what I could do is accept that they have gerrymandered our state ridiculously, that we are losing representation on the Democratic side, in the House, but that we can have a strong voice representing Dallas, going into the Congress to talk about what has to be done, both to stand up to Donald Trump and to the affordability crisis that we're facing and the corruption we're facing, but also to talk to the Democratic Party about some of the lessons that we have to learn, reconnecting with working people and not being so associated with elitism and being disconnected from folks. That to me is something we have to do as well, and that's what I want to do representing Dallas.
Is that also a signal that from your vantage point, Colin, Jasmine Crockett is a juggernaut?
Well, I don't know. I think that when you look at it, for us to have a successful Senate race where we're going to do something we haven't done in over 30 years, it can't really happen under the conditions that we're building, where we were going to just have, three, high-profile Democrats running, doing what they have to do to try and win, and then trying to come out of a runoff and then try and recollect and get ready for November. I just didn't see that as being conducive to a winning environment. But what I also thought, and I've always thought about this in terms of public service first, and Major, I think you know that about me, that I don't just run anywhere. This is the district where I was born and raised. I believe that we need to have a strong voice during this time, because this is not a normal time. This is not a normal election. This is not taking place with a normal person in the White House. This is happening in the backdrop of a situation where every single day the Constitution is being shredded by this president. And the Congress has really...
I don't have time to be listening to all that. So,
and in my opinion, and I'm a lot older than you, a lot wiser, a lot smarter, and a lot better educated, you are the party that has been trying to shred the Constitution. So, okay, fine. And
well, here's the thing.
David Crockett head over here with Malcolm X's thing about a processed head equaling a processed mind is an exemplar of what's wrong with the Democratic Party. A bunch of ideologues who do not care what happens to ordinary people if they can push the special interests that are behind them. And let's see, what's the special interest?
Wait.
Do
Slow
you
down.
remember
No, just
officer and a gentleman?
let me get to the polls here real quick. So
Okay.
Representative Jasmine Crockett, right, starts out in a challenging position to win the Senate in a U.S. seat. So Jasmine Crockett favor 33, Colin Alfred 31, James Tallarico 25, Ken Paxton, he's a Republican 28, John Corner, I think he's a Republican too, 21, Wesley Hunt, he's a Republican 18, right? So the top three here, the Democrats, and down here are the Republicans. She only got 33 favor, 40 unfavor, and that's not good. Never
Of
heard.
course it's not. Like I said, I'd bet on the snowball surviving hell rather than her.
So it says here, among respondents who have heard of the candidates, James Tallarico has the widest advantage in favorability. He has 48. Colin, he dropped out. He was at 39, and Jasmine was at 40. See, the Democrat Party forced Colin to drop out because she is the favorite for the party.
Well, let me give you a translation.
One second, Judge. Let me say this. She's the favorite for the DNC, but the people of that Senate district, the people of the state of Texas, she's not the favorite. She's just the favorite for the DNC, and that's a difference.
Okay, translation. Right now, under the conditions that are operative in the United States, a Democrat is not likely to become the senator from the state of Texas. Now, a senator from the state of Texas, there are two. So he may say, rather than get broke, spend all this time running for something I don't have a chance to run, let her go try and get whipped up on, and maybe we can build some support where I get the foolish and somebody will say, oh, they jumped her because she was a black woman. No, they jumped her because she's a fool.
So
And generally,
it says nearly 49% say they would definitely not vote for Jasmine Crockett. This is higher than any other candidate in the race. 43% say they would definitely not vote for Alfred. 40% feel similar about Tallarico. Jasmine Crockett currently trails both John Cornyn.
Cornier. I keep thinking of John Conyers. That's
Yeah,
not it.
no,
Go
so
ahead.
John Cornyn, Cornyn, I guess. 49%, 49% Cornyn to 41% Crockett. Ken Paxton, and he has a whole lot of scandal because he was actually, he stole some money. He violated a whistleblower act, and he was having all types of affairs, but he's beating Jasmine Crockett right now in the polls, 50% to her 42%. It's still early, but again, I guess the Democrats have something up their sleeve to push along.
Nothing. It's just an excellent opportunity for them to vent their propaganda. And she's gone. We won't be bothered with her for a while.
Well, we don't know if she's going yet. So
she's not going to be senator from the state of Texas.
Well, she got to get out the primaries. And
even she gets out, she won't win the main election in November next year.
Let me just play this clip. I have a couple of clips.
Well, I'm done with politics as usual. I'm done with going along to get along.
What is that echo?
I don't know. That's probably where she's speaking in a hall somewhere.
Let me do something let me try this because it's probably your phone.
Well, my phone's been working fine so far and it's brand new.
That she is running for the United States Senate in the great state of Texas. And there's a lot of chatter out there about how she's going to doom the Democratic Party. And as I ponder this, I'm thinking to myself, in 36 years, a Democrat has not won the great state of Texas to go and serve in the United States Senate. So how is it that the run of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett for that seat is somehow any different than the other people who have tried and failed over those 36 years? I wonder, does it have anything to do with race? We're going to tell radical truth, radical love, and radical care. So the Congresswoman has announced. And so how progressives look at her particular run is important. For those of us that believe that democracy should reign supreme, if you are a progressive, you should take it as such. That yes, she, as well as anybody else, has a right to run for this seat, period. And let the Democrats in Texas in the primary figure out which candidate they are going to advance in the general. But if people are dismissing the Congresswoman outright because of style, because of race, because of gender, the radical truth is something is wrong with you. Absolutely something is wrong with you, and you need to check yourself. Now, I'm talking to the Democrats right now. Progressives, we got to be on the democracy side of the ledger when it comes to this run. Because if we are not, then we are situating ourselves similarly to the neoliberal Democrats that we complain about, critique on a regular basis, and rightfully so. Now, this is not an endorsement of the Congresswoman, because quite frankly, I don't know where she stands on every issue. If she wants to run a very politically smart race and a morally correct race, then one of the issues she would be running on is Medicare for all. People all over the country, the majority of the American people want the federal government to play a stronger role in ensuring that they have health care. And that awakening has been bubbling up. Yes, since 2016, it is unquestionably the truth right now. And especially in the face of what is about to happen at the end of the year, going into 2026 with the Affordable Care Act. People from all political ideologies are saying that they cannot afford their health insurance. And the fact that we commodify it in the United States of America is wrong. It's wrong all day long. So I'm not sure where the Congresswoman stands on all issues. What I am saying right now is where I stand when it comes to democracy. She and anybody else has every right to run, to compete in the Democratic primary without having an extra burden of being called out differently from any other Democrat that would run for this seat. And one more time, let me remind you that this is the great state of Texas and that no Democrat has won this seat in 36 years. So this ain't had nothing to do with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. So don't bring it here. Don't bring it here. If you have a problem with her, just say you got a problem with her. But it is not, her run is not a threat to the Democratic Party itself. The Democratic Party itself, the way the leadership is comporting itself, especially nationally, that's the threat to the Democratic Party, not the faithful of the party. So I'm asking the faithful of the party, don't fall for this. Don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. She has every right to run. This is democracy reigning supreme.
That illustrates why I can no longer vote Democrat. The only thing they offer for Jasmine Crockett is she's black and she's female. So what? Being a fool is a status that can fall upon anyone's shoulders, whatever their ethnic group is. And sometimes it's not a question of whether someone's a fool, but how big a fool can a fool be? Next point we have here is that
Well, I want to look at her
what in the
website here.
world are you doing here? See, why are we giving this fool such great propaganda? You know, there's an old saying in politics in America, I don't care what you say about me, just make sure you say the name right and you get it spelled right. Any PR, any publicity is good publicity. So I don't like it that people have been so responsive to her by giving her all of this free airtime all across the country. You ought to do the same thing the Democrat-led communications and news media has done to everybody else. When it is not subject to approval, they don't talk about it. They just ignore it. Let's flip the script on them and ignore them. We don't need to give this clown this much publicity because she's not an intellect, she's not a scholar, she's not wise, she certainly isn't experienced in life, and she has illustrated a great deal of foolishness.
Well, here's the thing, because this is her campaign website, Jasmine for U.S. Senate. And I'm looking for an agenda and she doesn't have one. So this is the why I am running. Texas and our nation are heading in the wrong direction. Senators who didn't blink an eye as jobs were shipped overseas, unbothered as prices of gas, groceries, prescriptions skyrocket for far too long, yada, yada, yada. Okay, of course you had to mention Donald Trump. Where is the agenda? Like what is your agenda bullet points that you're running on as senator? You know, go to the about section. Okay. Um, you were sworn in, you know, your little history. And this is what I don't, you got a store, join the movement, contact. Of course, you want people to donate, but this is it for her website.
Well, here's what we get out of this whole sordid mess is we get what she's against. We don't have anything she's for that is viable. What does she stand for? I mean, are we going to have a national plebiscite to determine how much face hair some male can have and still use the women's bathroom?
But this is exactly why she doesn't have an agenda right now, because I'm pretty sure her agenda bullet points are going to be illegals and rainbow.
Okay, her constituency is primarily black, right? So what
Not
good?
really. No, it's not. It's not.
No, hold on. That's who she's depending on. Black folk are political power, black power, but they don't know what to do with it. She's got black power behind her. So what does she want to do? Push illegal immigrants, and the first victim in line is who? Her black constituents. They're the ones that'll suffer from the illegal immigration thing. All right. Crime. She's anti law and order. And who are the main victims of crime where she is? Dallas. It's the black community. Crime's rampant in the black areas in Dallas. Okay. What, does she have any policy on foreign affairs? No. Does she have any military acumen? No. What does she know? She's an ideologue. So she has a whole lot she stands against, but nothing that she has that we should support her for.
So the three largest groups of her district are black at 40%, white, non-Hispanic, and two other races, including other Hispanic. So Hispanics make up 36.4%. 16.8% is foreign born as of 2023. So she has a mixture. She has black people and Hispanics. Her district also, the median property value is 240,000. The median household income is 70,000. This is not a poor black district. This is class, and now it's not a working class. This is actually middle class, and up. So again, it's not all black. It's only 40%. And then, out of the 40% of vote, out of the 40% of black people there, what is the percentage of people who are eligible to vote? And are they going to vote for her? Are they all Democrat? So that number shrinks when you add in all those other factors.
As I said, I'd vote on the snowball surviving hell before she does. You know, the old saying, what are the, like you have the same chance of a snowball not melting in hell.
Right.
Old
And
saying.
this right here is an old video of her. And this is probably the only time she was actually talking about what she would do specifically for Black Americans.
Just this past
Can you hear that?
I hear just this past
week, I saw, I don't remember which celebrity, but it was actually a celebrity. And I was like, I don't know that that's not necessarily a bad idea, but I'd have to think through it a lot. One of the things that they propose is black folk not have to pay taxes for a certain amount of time, because then again, that puts money back in your pocket. But at the same time, it may not be as objectionable to some people about actually giving out dollars. But obviously then you start dealing with the different tax brackets and things like that. And that's one of the reasons that, we argue the reparations make sense, because so many black folk, not only do you owe for the labor that was stolen and killed and all the other things, right? But the fact is, like, we end up being so far behind, right? And so it's like, how do you bring for people. Exactly. And so it's like if you do the no tax thing for people that are already, say, struggling and aren't really paying taxes in the first place, it doesn't really exactly.
They may want those checks like they got.
So she's saying that Black people who are already struggling, they're not paying a whole bunch of taxes anyway. She sounds crazy. And why don't you just say the word reparations? Like what she was describing as reparations, but not pay taxes. You can't just say Black people are the only ones that don't pay taxes. It doesn't work like that.
She's supposed to be in the U.S. House of Representatives, but has no comprehension of what the Constitution she took an oath to uphold says. You can't do that. There is no way in the devil to do that. And by the way, that fits into what, if there is such a thing as white supremacy that manifests as she has been claiming, then that's their position. Because of certain status of color, you get privileges that other folk don't, and you should have them just because of your color. So why should one category of American citizen not be required to pay taxes based on their color? I resent that. That's insulting.
But what just is that your solution for reparations? Just say you don't even say the word reparations. And you could tell this is in the beginning of her political career because you could see the wig. She didn't get that glow up just yet. That money wasn't coming in just yet. But it's like, girl, bye.
And again, they are against Trump and for nothing. This is one of the most preposterous things I have heard an elected official say in a long time. Do you think that such a proposition would survive even one of the rinky-dink select appointees of the Obama administration? No way in the devil could you put that out. Who's going to do that? You're supposed to be in the House of Representatives. Do you expect that to get out of the House?
What?
That you say
Don't pay
the
taxes?
people, because of their color, are not supposed to be taxed. Do you expect such a thing to even make it on the floor of the House, to be discussed on the floor, let alone a vote get taken on it?
Right. That's unconstitutional because you can't do it based on race. You can't do stuff like you can't really do anything just based on race. That's
Of
unconstitutional.
course you can't do it, but she doesn't seem to get it.
She
Now,
doesn't
doesn't
know
she?
that, and she's a damn lawyer.
Yeah. So, all of these bad things that get said about the public defender's office that I sometimes try to counter by saying sometimes the public defender's office is the best representation. Well, she illustrates why people have that kind of negative opinion about public defenders because of asinine statements like this by someone who represented somebody in a serious criminal case or a minor one, which is probably her situation because she doesn't seem to have been around long enough to get serious cases. That's why they say what they say, because the person who's defending them doesn't seem to know much about American law, because they get into this crank situation. And it's embarrassing as an attorney to hear this. Well, or a
Purity, get
retired
out
attorney.
the window.
What's
Purity.
that?
Purity, get out the window. Purity, get.
She came over, she heard you. And that was the munchkin over here too.
Mahogany. Hi, Mahogany. So there's something else. You're making me lose focus here.
The dogs did, not me.
Did you see? So I just want to spin back real quick to the Somalians. Did you see the video of the white woman in the Cinnabon in Wisconsin Mall yelling out racial slurs to Somalians?
That's inappropriate. Not all Somalians are criminals, not even most of them. It's just they need to have a little bit more community.
Something's wrong with me. I did not ask people, guys, can you please like the video, share the video, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. I did not say that all night long. and we're not going to be up here too much longer. So I want to play this clip real quick.
Sexualizing your body makes you a better person.
Are you recording? I'm gonna record you. Yes.
You want me to throw water on you? I am racist.
So idiot for
And
real.
you are an
idiot. No,
I
I'm
am
not.
racist, and I'll say that to the whole entire world. Don't be disrespectful.
You ruin your life, by the way.
Oh, you're talking about respect? You're talking about respect? You are fired from this place, man. You're not gonna be working here. Suck what? Look how you talking about ugliness?
Did I stutter?
You're the ugliest person I ever seen in my life.
Good.
Fuck.
Your fucking
No, we're
face
not.
for
No,
what?
we're not. No, we're not.
Because you know damn well you're a
That's
fucking
respect.
evil
That's
fuck.
respect. Keep squeezing that caramel, bitch. Get the fuck out of here.
That was meant for you.
So she got fired, but
Well, she made that choice.
but people started a GoFundMe, and they raised over $100,000 for her.
I don't agree with her position, but sometimes you do what you have to do when you think you should do it. I retired because I was no longer going to trade my soul with Hollywood to support that rainbow nonsense. And I just said, I'm not going to do it. So they tried to coerce me. I said, screw you. You can talk to my lawyers. But anyway, sometimes money isn't the most important thing, but sometimes it's very concerning to some people, mostly Democrats. We find out that they came from, shall we say, lower middle class families, but they wind up multimillionaires, and all they've ever gotten is a paycheck from the federal government, which, unless you're a beneficiary of insider trading advancements and dips into campaign funds and the public coffers, you don't have the wherewithal to become a multimillionaire. Let's talk about somebody else who, on the opposite side, did the same kind of thing by applying her attentions to the rainbow community out in the Bay Area of San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi.
Oh. So I
How
want
do
to
you
play.
become worth $100-some million and you've never gotten any money in your life but a civil servant's
What's
paycheck?
that have to do with the cinnamon bun racist girl?
No, I mean, I moved it on. Forget that. I just
I
said,
know, 'cause you getting
no,
tired
I
now.
did. I answered. I just said
Talk,
this
talk,
is,
talk, talk
well,
earlier.
let me just briefly
I
answer.
want to play this clip here. I want to play this other clip. This is about the
Okay, go
Somali.
ahead.
Since when the fuck did we have to bow down to certain communities? Look, I'm Asian. I'm Vietnamese, okay? When we have our own communities too, and our communities thriving. We have businesses. We've been here only, what, less than 50 years after the 1975. Our communities are thriving throughout the United States. If you look at our numbers, there's only about 2 million of us here in the United States. And out of that 2 million people that we have, majority of us have businesses, scientists, engineers, doctors, bright mind people that given back to this country more than we've taken. And we have never asked anybody to bow down or speak our language. Okay? Since when the fuck this stupid ass mayor of the little pirate motherfucking land pirate Somalian in Minnesota have to speak their language and apologizing for those motherfucking crook ass pirates? Since when we have to do that? This is just a fucking crook, and he's a Jewish dude.
I can't play no. Why do they curse so much on these TikToks?
Because that's what they learned. You remember Richard Pryor had a skit 40-some years ago about that. And look, you know what's interesting? My iPad, brand new tetrabyte iPad. You know what it says on there? Made in Vietnam.
Oh my God, what happened? It just always happens. And then he probably talking. He don't realize that it knocked him out. Oh my God. me text him. Happened. And he's still talking.
Technology, engineering,
Hold
and
on.
math. And
Wait.
that's what he said.
Judge, stop. You was talking that whole time. You wasn't even in the room. They knocked you out.
Okay, well, let me put it start again. I'll do it again.
Okay, go
See,
ahead.
they edit this stuff. See, this is Democrat stuff. They want to talk about fascism. Look at it. You can see it. This is fascism. Now, check this out. You have a situation where my iPad, brand new, 2 TB, tetrabyte, tetraflop iPad, says made in Vietnam. And what I was saying is I have friends, relatives that got deaded or mutilated in Vietnam for that 7-year long great hate we had over there. Now, what
Hold,
time is that?
hold on.
Put a
Why
pause.
did
Somebody's at the front door. Let me go see what that
that's why
is.
I say tell them to go to bed. Who at your door late?
I don't know. Maybe they're making a delivery. Hold on. Let me
They're
see.
gonna deliver at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. Take your
The
gun.
post office came by. I want to see who this is.
Take the gun. You got your gun with you? You got your steel?
Hello?
Who was this ringing his damn doorbell? Who was that?
I'm back.
Who was that?
Literally Bambi standing on the front door.
So it wasn't your doorbell, it was a deer.
Yeah, and they were running there. So Bambi was out there trying to chill.
But Bambi didn't ring the doorbell. So why you said somebody rung the doorbell?
Something bumped up against the door. So
Or
they
was that your alarm alert?
no, that was bumping against the door and the alarm dogs here. They
Well,
have
you
I
have
don't
your
pay.
keys? Do you have your
What's it?
gun with you? Do you have your gun with you?
The Second Amendment doesn't have any time restrictions on it.
That's what I'm saying. When you walk to that door at 10
I'm
o'clock,
not saying that over the air.
I think you better because people going to
Well,
try.
I'm not saying that over the air.
Honey, you come prepared.
Remember the Richard Pryor thing too, where the guy was supposed to deliver a turkey on the next holiday, said, and that big black spider that you saw, you failed to deliver that turkey and you will find out where it went. Well, that's the kind of thing. You leave that up in the air. But by the way, back to this, see, what he said was, there's just a few million Vietnamese. Stop,
Tell them to
girl.
go to bed.
It's not time, and they're playing alarm dog. There's a bunch of deer out in
My
the
dog is
backyard.
over there asleep. It is dogs.
Yeah, but there are deer out in the backyard. Stop. Hey, quiet.
I have deer in my backyard at 8 o'clock, honey. He sleep. He ain't thinking about no
Well,
damn deer.
they keep my hours. Hey, shush,
Put them in a cage.
shush. This one's
Shut
still
up.
a puppy. Anyway. But what the point is this. See, he's talking about there are just a few million Vietnamese in the United States of America. They've made good, made well. They didn't have to play all of this identity politics to get somewhere because they chose to prepare themselves, which got them out of the Vietnam situation to begin with 50 some years ago. Science, technology, engineering, math, etc. In other words, they spent their time in families or individually being about contributing to society on a large scale. So they're contributing members of today's society. When you get people in because, oh my God, they're so down and out, we have to bring them into our welfare system, that doesn't work. And see, that's one of the things that black folk need to understand. As long as you're with the Democratic Party, they want you to be down and out. They don't want you to understand science, technology, engineering, and math so you can make something happen that's commensurate with the 21st century. They want you to be dependent and down on the bottom, so you will depend upon them to provide for you rather than you being able to provide for yourself. And there are parables, since they want to ignore them, that need to be brought into this. You can teach a man to fish, or you can feed him a fish. If you teach him to fish, he'll always be able to feed himself. And if he can't, then he will be dependent on you feeding him, which means you can control him or her. And that is the mantra of the Democratic Party and what we hear so much of. Vote for me because I'm black. And what am I going to do if you vote for me because I'm black or black and female or whatever your particular characteristic is? I will make sure that you keep your dumb ass dependent so you can't make it on your own. You will depend upon us taking care of you. Dog, go over there, put your collar on, and wait till we open up the package of kibbles and bits so we can feed you.
So a couple more things and then we're
It's
going
insulting, really.
I wanted to highlight this. We haven't talked about Mandandi in a minute. Zohan Mandandi. He's the new mayor of New York and he's going to be sworn in January the 1st. And he is, appointing people to his administration. And his latest appointment is a convicted armed robber to public safety transition team. So my son Lennon, he served 7 years for armed robbery convictions in the late 1990s, taxi driver holdup. And Mayor-elect Zohan Mandani has chosen a formerly incarcerated rapper to serve on his City Hall transition team as he prepares to take office January 1st. So Mandandi, he won the election in November. My son Lennon is 49. It was announced in November 26 via Instagram. Until Freedom, New York City-based social justice organization, where Lennon is a leader. He's hooked up with Tamika Mallory, who was hooked up with Al Sharpton and them. So he is featured in a social media post alongside Tamika Mallory and Angelo Pinto. We are proud that Until Freedom leaders have been chosen to serve on Mayor-elect Zohan Mandani's transition team on committees for public safety and criminal justice, respectfully. So this
You know what? Doesn't that sound, the Democratic Party can't help but shooting itself in the foot. They always do something like this. Like supposedly criminality is supposed to be characteristic of black folk. And then they want to talk about racism and white supremacy. What in the devil's going on here?
Well, he says this is a testament of our decades of work advocating on behalf of Black and Brown communities and our expertise in gun violence prevention, legislative advocacy, and criminal justice reform. We are building something different. Over the years, Lennon has built a public appearance as community activist, frequently posting about anti-violence initiatives and civic engagement and promoting his involvement with Until Freedom. According to past reports, Lennon, he is a Bronx native who once signed to Def Jam, was convicted of 2 felony robberies in the late 1990s. Now, listen, everybody has a past. If you did the crime, you do the time, and you come out as a better person. And that could have been him in this situation. But he is so far left. He is so liberal. He is so woke. I don't deal with him or Tamika Mallory's and Al Sharpton's because they are the Democrat plantation overseers. They're part
Well,
of
you
it.
know what? In prior times, you would have been hung for something like this, so you would have no future paths to hanging unless you came back as a ghost, right? So then they got enlightened sentencing, so you serve time. So, there are consequences to wrongful behavior. And you're going to point the fox to guard the hen house or to crook to run the anti-crook stuff. Well, it's not that you can't put them to use, but make them in charge of the program. Oh, that's so Democratic Party, you know?
I mean, it is. And so, okay, I want to go to their website here.
Boy.
Wait a minute. Let me pull it up this way. First thing they do, asking for money. Okay, I get it. Until Freedom is an intersectional social justice organization rooted in leadership of diverse people of color to address systemic and racial injustice. At Until Freedom, we believe that those closest to the pain are the closest to the solution. Therefore, we focus on investing in those who are the most directly impacted by cyclical poverty, inequality, and state violence. We are a clearinghouse for advocates, new and budding activists, seasoned community organizers, students, movement lawyers, entertainers, artists, policy experts, formerly and currently incarcerated individuals, and survivors of gun violence who work literary to uplift all people. Everyone is worthy. Everyone is needed to win. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, you know what? See, what this reflects is the same thing you heard Sotomayor say on that Supreme Court argument, which is you need expertise on something because the people that are elected to do stuff or nominally in charge are ignorant of it. So you need specialists to handle this kind of thing. This is Democratic Party stuff. Appoint a crook to handle the anti-crook stuff. Yeah, now that might work, but you don't make that person in charge because guess what you're saying?
Well,
wait, what are you saying?
what that
Crime
you are?
pays.
Yeah, well,
Crime
I
pays.
don't think it's that because if that's the case, a lot of people in Congress, Republican and Democrat, needs to be out.
Yeah, agreed. There
But
ought to be a character clause,
but
but there's not.
but it's nothing wrong with well, it was you did a crime, you did the time, and now you are advocating to make your community better. Cool.
And yes, there's no problem with that. But the point is,
But my thing is, so for this mayor to appoint him in a position of criminal justice reform, when you talk about politics, when you talk about political science, he doesn't have a college degree. Why didn't you also take the time out to go to college? You would focus on your rapping career, and then you became an activist.
hold on a second. Let's talk about reality. This is okay to appoint an armed robber to head an anti-crime commission, but a U.S. president who simply supposedly obstructed Congress, which is not even an impeachable offense, was subjected to the impeachment process in an effort to keep him from ever becoming president again or ever running for a political office. And he got elected anyway and has become one of our great presidents. Well, if it's okay to say you thwarted the will of a corrupt Democratic Party controlled Congress, you can be banned. But if you hold somebody up at gunpoint, that's okay. You see, it isn't consistent. If you say one thing and you spend months campaigning on that point, how can you turn right around and say, oh, wow, But that only applies when it's somebody trying to do right that we disagree with, but somebody can go stick 'em up, sucker, let it hit the ground, it's going down.
Well,
And by the way, why doesn't the candidate for mayor or the successful mayor know something about it? See, can he walk the streets or does he need a crook to go interface with the crooks? See, I ran for
and that's
mayor
um,
in this
sometimes,
city. It's not
wait a
as
minute,
big as New York,
let
but
me
I
say this.
mean, I can walk the streets because I know the
Right.
people.
So let me say this. Let me say this because sometimes it takes one to know one. So if you were a crook, you could easily point out crooks. But see, it's deeper than that. It's so much deeper than that because he appointed him to help advise him on criminal justice. So he on the criminal justice system, and again, he has no formal education except for high school. He did not a college, not a community service, major in political science, did major in even criminal justice. Just because you committed some crimes and you were arrested and you went to prison doesn't make you qualified to be an expert, in criminal justice system and criminal justice reform. Going back to what we was talking about earlier with Trump having the powers to fire and hire people, you know, um, in such certain positions. So, and let me just add this one last thing. He is actually the first, not only man, but first Black person that he's appointed to his transition team because everybody else is women and women of color or gay. He's the first Black and first Black man that he's appointed on his team, Zohan Mandandi. So
Isn't that a shame where the Black man's got to be a convicted violent criminal, convicted of a crime, robbery, that would have historically been held to be a crime of moral turpitude or low character?
well,
See what the
former.
Democratic Party does? Black men aren't shit. They're toxic, according to the Democratic Party. And any black male is somebody that relegates his masculinity to a small part, unless he's a crook, because, the crooks are the real victims of society, the way
I'm
they
trying,
say.
I'm trying to figure out what is his expertise in the criminal justice system.
What does that have to do with anything?
Because he's appointed to criminal justice reform.
What
He's
does
going
that have to do with anything where the Democratic Party is concerned? Like I talked about Tanjay head scratching justice. They had Roger E. Clifton on the Second Circuit justice. They had on the Sixth Circuit Justice Bernice Donald, who would have made fine additions to the U.S. Supreme Court. Did they get elected? No. Why? Because they had good common sense and they were right down the middle of things.
Anything else you want to say on this appointment?
I guess she doesn't wear a wig often enough. Jasmine Crockett, Justice Tanjay, what's his last name supposed to be? Jackson?
I want to play this real quick.
Yeah, and look at that. Ain't that something? They just fly in the face of it.
I want to bring up, and to me, I feel like this is something not to point fingers or the blame, because I feel like when you divide, obviously that's when you conquer, right? But a big part of the people that I know was not going for Kamala, let's just talk about that whole situation. It wasn't us. It wasn't the black women that wasn't going out and voting. Honestly, I spoke to a lot of black men, and they were not going out to vote.
Statistics tell us that most black men that voted did vote for Kamala.
Exactly. Well, I'm talking about people like now on radio, I have a lot of people that call in, and they made it very, very clear that they were never going to vote for Kamala ever, is what they said. They said they'd take anyone over her.
So I will say this. So having experienced this myself, I can speak from a place of both power and information. Okay. Sexism is absolutely real in every community. Racism is absolutely real. But let's look at the data. And what the data says is that black men support black women. Black women support black women the most. Yeah. But the next highest support system, black men. Now, a lot of folks who call in to tell you what they are going to do weren't planning to do anything anyway.
They didn't vote at all.
And so we need to remember that disinformation often comes by planting people in our communities to fracture our belief systems. Black men voted for me at the same rate they voted for Raphael Warnock. But if you heard the news, black men couldn't stand me, and that is designed to fracture our communities. I think it is so important that you raise that, because one of the misinformation points is that they leverage our inherent mistrust of systems to convince us that we don't have the support that we need. My responsibility is to never let them tell me that my brothers don't love me as much as my sisters do.
Amen. That's right.
But the other reality is that when they do those exit polls, you gotta remember, we are 13% of the population. How exactly are you finding a representative sample when you're only talking to 1 or 2 people in every state? They then extrapolate from that in ways that shape narratives but defy math.
That's right.
And so we can't let them tell us who we are. But my point is,
well, let me say this before I give you the floor. You lost. So the right amount of black men that would have helped you become governor of Georgia did not vote for you. Because if that was the case, you would have won. The amount of black men that left the Democrat plantation for last year's election was enough to make sure Kamala Harris was not going to be president. So the right black men are the ones that did not vote for Kamala, did not vote for Stacey, did not vote for anybody Democrat. They vote for the Republicans, the right black men, the right ones, the ones that matter. The ones that
you said it. I second that. Madam Chairman, I second that.
Because she's saying, listen, let's just say 80% of black America still vote, 80 to 90% of black America still vote Democrat. All right. Majority
80 to 90% of the slaves in America stayed on the plantations and nobody had to keep them there.
The black men who left and became Republicans or voted Republicans, they are the black men. We need more of those black men, but those are the right ones. Those are the ones that determined that you were not going to be governor. Those were the ones that determined Kamala Harris was not going to be president. So the girl with the green wig, she was right. You didn't get that support from black men. The black men that matters.
Yeah. The Democratic Party keeps forgetting that 50% approximately of the human race is male. And most 99% of them approve of masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
So they seem to act like we don't exist. They forget the yin yang or yin yang principle.
And if you are so confident that majority of black men were supporting you, Stacey Abrams, I remember her campaign. You didn't have an agenda for black men on your website.
No, you didn't. It was mostly negative to black men.
Right. You didn't reach out to black men. You didn't have town meetings. I think she eventually had one town hall meeting with black men, and that's because she started getting so much heat and pushback, because she was not speaking to black men. So it forced her to have that sorry ass, I think, one town hall meeting, and she wasn't talking about nothing. So the right black men, RIGHT, the right black men are the ones that did not vote for you, Kamala, Jasmine, or any other Democrat. They're on the Republican side.
Amen. It is written. It is so. That's what amen means, by the way, in Latin. So,
yeah.
There's nothing to say about that. You're absolutely correct, 100%. And it amazes me that the rest of us are supposed to say we're toxic, we don't count, we're too stupid, or men generally. Oh, yeah. World War II got won by the women who were at Bastogne, who were on Iwo Jima, who were in B-29s, B-17s, all of these women that won the wars. You understand? That didn't count. Oh, well, war is horrible. It's a man thing. Yeah, but when these other guys decide they're going to take you out, who's supposed to stand up to them? Oh, remember I showed you that some years ago, that commercial, that video that the U.S. Army put out where it was the girl was raised by gay women and then she graduated from college and she wanted a thrill. So she wanted to be in the U.S. Army, and then the cartoon animation morphed into the real person, and that's supposed to get you to join up. Meanwhile, in contrast, the People's Republic of China was showing you their man up campaign and be a man and join your military and defend your country. I just said, what did I tell you then? This just does not equate.
Mhm.
Who do you think's going to win if it gets down to a fracas? And it can, because who did we have our first war with? Great Britain. Who did we have our second war with? Great Britain. All right. Who did we have the next war with?
The second war. We didn't have a second war with Great Britain.
War of 1812. They
No, that was
invaded.
Britain. I thought that was Mexico.
No, 1812 was when the British invaded us and they burnt the White House, which was gray
Oh,
at
yes,
that
yes, yes,
point.
yes,
And
yes.
they had to rebuild the White House and they painted it white.
Okay.
Okay, then we had 1848, we had the Mexican American War. We have a good relationship with Mexico now. Then, of course, we had the Civil War, and now the Southerners are in the forefront. Texas, where the Negroes had to wait a whole year after the war was over to find out that they was free. And now we celebrate June 19th, which was really 1866, not 65. And then we had, the Spanish American War, but we got Cuba out of their mess, and now Cuba's an enemy, though it was an ally. We still have Guantanamo in Cuba, which is a naval base. Forget the fact that it's right in the middle of a hostile country. We've got, we've got the Philippines, who are one of our staunchest allies.
Okay, we don't need to run down.
In other words, you go in and out, and the Democrats don't get this, that there are people that are sometimes your friends, sometimes not. And when it's a question of not, they will shoot at you, they will kill you, they will bomb you. So we want to get rid of the masculine component of the country because war is evil. Yeah, but humans won't stop war on each other. So
Right.
what are you supposed to do?
Real quick, Supreme Court agrees to hear Trump's challenge to birthright citizenship. Supreme Court will hear oral arguments early next year in the challenge to President Donald Trump's January 20 executive order seeking to end birthright citizenship, the guarantee of citizenship to almost everyone born in the United States. Under the order, which has never gone into effect, people born in the United States will not be automatically entitled to citizenship if their parents are in this country either illegally or temporarily. The challengers argue that the order conflicts with both the text of the Constitution and the court's long-standing case law. So the announcement came in brief list of orders from the justices' private conference. The court will release another list of orders, including the cases from the conference, which has denied review or whatever. So early next year, we're going to hear the arguments, and the judgment, I believe, for the birthright citizenship is not going to come until 2020, the summer of 2026.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. See, Dred Scott said Negroes, colored, black folk could not be citizens of the United States, so they were not entitled in any of the circumstances to the full panoply of rights. Plessy versus Ferguson came that said separate but equals okay. Why? Because in between, you got the 14th Amendment that was written and drafted in part specifically to reverse the precedent of Dred Scott, which, having been delivered by a court that remained as a part of the Union, it was still good law. So the 14th Amendment's legislative history is very clear, and its drafting, which Frederick Douglass had something to do with, was clear to overturn Dred Scott. So they also dealt with Native Americans at that point as well. So when you come in and apply it later, you run into some inconsistencies. This was not the intent of the amendment. I know it says what it says, but that's why we have a Supreme Court to deal with those unanticipated things. Like we now fly commonly in airplanes when most of the amendments to the Constitution were like, what is an airplane? You know, whose fantasy is that? So these things are to be decided. And it's not saying that the U.S. Supreme Court might not agree. It might not even suggest that a constitutional amendment might come up to clarify that. And remember, there have been amendments that have been reversed. Remember one of them? Elliot Ness, Al Capone, Joe Kennedy, and the gangsters that made fortunes bootlegging whiskey because of prohibition.
Well, the United States is one of roughly 30 countries, including Canada and Mexico, that offer automatic citizenship to nearly everyone born here. Birthright citizenship was added to the Constitution in 1868 when the 14th Amendment was adopted following the Civil War. The section of that amendment, known as the Citizenship Clause, provides that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Amendment was intended to overrule one of the Supreme Court's most notorious decisions, 1857 ruling of Dred Scott versus Sanford, holding that a Black person whose ancestors were brought to the United States and enslaved was not entitled to any protections from the federal courts because he was not a U.S. citizen. But with the 14th Amendment, it overturned that, which allows former enslaved Black Americans to be citizens. And now illegal immigrants are using the 14th Amendment made for Black babies, like Trump said, and Black people. They're trying to use that for themselves to become citizens when they have their anchor babies here.
Well, yeah, see, the thing of it is there is an old doctrine that the U.S. Supreme Court is responsible for. It's called the Wong-Sun Doctrine, Wongsun. It comes out of San Francisco. And what it stands for is the fruit of the poisonous tree cannot be admitted. In other words, if the tree that it springs from is poisonous, all the fruit that it produces is poisonous. So what happens is if you break the law, you are a criminal to enter the United States of America. And then you have a child, you cannot be rewarded with the feat of the American laws by simply getting knocked up after having sex, which so many people crave recreationally. And we have so many porn movies and everything else to commemorate and enjoy and all this other stuff. Just because you did something a lot of people seek to do for personal enjoyment and other purposes doesn't mean you should be forgiven for your crime. So if you are here illegally, that's a poison tree. And the fruit of the poison tree, the offspring are just as poisonous. So deport all parties. I mean, it's harsh, but that's the law. How many people or crying about what am I going to do about my babies? I can't do this 25 years in the penitentiary. Well, don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
So I want to play this clip here because a federal judge issued a ruling restricting warrantless immigration arrests.
For the Trump administration to stop making immigration arrests in D.C. without a warrant. This is the latest courtroom loss for the president's mass deportation agenda. The ruling comes after several groups sued the administration over the practice that has seen hundreds of ICE agents in the city. As News 4's Mark Seagraves reports, federal agents are still able to make warrantless arrests if they can prove the person is a flight risk.
It's a scene we've seen play out over and over again over the past several months here in D.C. and around the country. Masked federal agents arresting people they believe are in the country illegally.
The amount of immigration arrests that have happened in the District of Columbia since August is at least 1,200. And we believe that the majority of those, if not the vast majority, were warrantless immigration arrests.
Austin Rose is an attorney with Amica, a nonprofit that represents detained immigrants. Amica was one of the groups that sued the Trump administration. Yesterday, federal judge Burl Howell issued an order barring federal agents from detaining suspected undocumented immigrants without a warrant, unless they can prove the person poses a flight risk.
They're arresting first, asking questions later. And we hope that now that they are required to actually make those findings and do that analysis, that they will arrest far fewer people because they will realize that most of these people are not a flight risk, for example. They are people who have been living and working in the District of Columbia for years. They're not going anywhere. ICE is free to put them in immigration removal proceedings and have court proceedings, but that doesn't mean they need to be arrested and detained, sent across the country to a detention center away from their family.
With the judge's order less than 24 hours old, it's unclear whether the Trump administration will obey the judge, who's an Obama appointee.
I expect this decision to have significant positive effects in reducing the amount of warrantless arrests or arrests in general in the District of Columbia to keep more of our neighbors here. Do I expect it to be fully and comprehensively followed at all times? No. I hope it will be.
The judge's order also requires federal agencies to track and provide records of anyone who is detained without a warrant.
This government has shown a willful disregard for the law. So now going forward, pursuant to this order, whenever the government makes an immigration arrest in D.C. without a warrant, they must document and provide the documents to us as the plaintiff's counsel.
In the district, Mark Seagraves, News 4.
Mark reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for comment. They responded with this statement, quote, "Let's drop the charade. This case isn't really about arrest procedures or legal standards. At root, this case and all the others like it are about open borders groups and activist judges doing everything in their power to stop the will of the American people and prevent the Trump administration from fulfilling the president's mandate to deport the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens," end quote. The statement went on to say that DHS operates in line with the Constitution and all applicable federal laws. It also said allegations that DHS engages in racial profiling are disgusting, reckless, and categorically false.
Well, you have to have probable cause to make any arrest. And flight risk, hell, they broke the border and they certainly fled from the border a couple of thousand miles away, or 900 miles away to get to D.C. in the first place. Somebody's harboring them, concealing them, and violating Title 8, Section 1324 of the United States Criminal Code by setting up and aiding and abetting them to evade apprehension. So it seems like, by definition, you smuggle yourself across the country, you are not going to show back up, or there's a high likelihood of flight, which is attendant upon your circumstances to begin with.
Right.
So I mean, it's typical of Democratic Party appointees. That's what they look at when they're dealing with. And like was said, this is just, I mean, I'm all for due process and following the law, but this is just trying to facilitate this mess of, oh my God, we have to bring in everybody. It's their right to be
Or
here.
let them stay here because they're already here. No, they still got to go. But they're just trying to make it harder for the Trump administration, for ICE and Department of Homeland Security to do their job.
Okay, Judge, what am I going to do about my 6 children? Well, you should have thought about that, ma'am, before you became an accomplice in this armed robbery. The jury has convicted you, and on evaluating the sentence guidelines, it is appropriate that as a range 1 standard offender under the circumstances, your sentence shall be under the Tennessee sentencing guidelines, 20 years in the state penitentiary or with the Department of Corrections. Let it be so. But what about my babies? You should have thought about that.
Well, would you say that for someone who crossed the border illegally?
Yes, they shouldn't have done it.
So thank you. I always mess up your name, Messebon, but I know your name is Mike. Thank you, Bon or Bone. Democrat Party is for slavery. Slavery is existing outside of prison. Yeah. Thank you to Rob 103100. Thank you to Sarah Kelly. Appreciate you. Gina, thank you. And that's it. I'm tired.
The law is the law and it should be followed. And you have to understand this encourages people to continue to break the law and crash the border. But remember, there's Al Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, North Korea, there is Iran. All of these people hate our guts, and we just say, come right on in. Blow us up. It's your convenience.
Well, listen, guys, like this video, share this video. Everybody that sent in a donation. Oh, and thank you, Walter, for the Cash App. Appreciate you as always. And I would see you guys, me by myself, Wednesday, and you guys will see the judge again Thursday for Injustice for All. And everybody have a wonderful week. Anything you want to say in closing, Judge?
Follow the law.
All right. Where's the video at the outro?
And remember, it isn't worth our people, anybody suffering theft and death just because a bankrupt political party gets an opportunity to badmouth a president who's trying to turn things around.
Right. All right. Good night, everybody. Peace.
All righty.